Yeah, so we're in week 5, embodied living and dying, and this is the heart of the transmission that's coming through this work for me. And I this idea of embodied dying came through a few years ago, and I was talking about it and writing about it, and this class again, the length of this class allows me to sort of, and the group field and the village aspect of the group allows me to just like be in some ways a hollow bone for what is coming through this. And I've just had, even the last few days, just a tremendous amount of, I don't know, like I guess I would call it transmission or something. And I'm really excited to share this with you today. Falling in love with existence, um, Tantra, and the practice of surfing life and sort of death informed, embodied dying informed practices. I don't think we're going to be able to get to archetypes of death this week, so I'm going to probably have it be on week 7. But let's go ahead and start with our meditation and our embodiment practice. So I just want to invite you to settle into the midline, into that place of deep stillness. And I want you to find that special part of you, which is called the observer, also known as the witness. And I have a special task for the observer today. And the most important tool in the observer's toolkit is awareness and neutrality. Staying really neutral as our observer watches. This is a task of a lifetime. But right now, we just have a small task. I'm wanting to invite the observer to be quiet and gentle and stealthy as it observes this part of us. And we're going to sort of tiptoe through the back door, sort of trying not to creak the floorboards late at night. And what we're going to be asking this observer to observe in a neutral, aware way without influencing, just noticing, is the breath. And when we give space, the observer does its best job to be neutral and just notice. See how curious you can get. We spend a lot of time changing, adjusting, fixing. But right now, we're just going to notice, how curious can we get? What's the depth? What's the breadth? The tone or the style? How many aspects of the breath can you observe? And we're going to give the observer a question. While the observer is watching, we're also going to ask the observer, who is breathing me? And have the observer just ponder that question. Who is breathing me? And if the observer is trying to fix or change, just Remind it it's a scientist. Its only job is awareness. When you're ready, you can thank the observer, thank the breath. You can come back to your ordinary reality. All the different parts. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. How was that for folks sneaking up on the breath? Anybody want to share, Dara?
It wasn't so much a who as it was a what. And
What's breathing?
what was, and it was love. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. It's the unanswerable question. Good. Right. Does anyone have a beloved dead to share with us today? A brief introduction to a name and your relationship with that person and maybe when they died. Maria.
My beloved ancestor. See about how close I could get this. Is that still
yeah.
clear?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, is David Harry Raffanaugh. We were partners for 10 years in the 70s and then parted ways. He died April 12th of 2011 of a sudden heart attack. He was gone in a second or two or three at 65. And I had written him, we stayed very close, beloved friends over the course of our lifetime. We taught each other a lot in that 10 years. And so I had written him in a birthday card, something I'd just like to read. It's pretty short. And so David Harry Raffanaugh, what a blessing you are in those moments when you might forget, founder, or lose sight of your wonderfulness. I want to be one voice to remind you of how important you are to so many. I'm going to cry. Musician magnifique, skilled in so many ways with your hands, unique, sweetly quirky, creative, out of any box. Funny, playful, thoughtful, humble, wiser by the moment. In the midst of all the challenges we face while being in this life as wholehearted as possible, you have remained beautifully true to yourself. You also have sustained the gift of our friendship with a deeply solid sense of affirmation and wavering in your love and trust of our connection. I'm so proud to be your friend and to feel known by you. Very special, with deepest gratitude. That describes him.
What a gift. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes,
So intimate.
yes. Thank you for the opportunity to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. David, blessings.
David.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Our quote for this week is beloved Pema Chodron. And she says, the next time there's no ground to stand on, don't consider it an obstacle. Consider it a remarkable stroke of luck. We have no ground to stand on, and at the same time, it could soften us and inspire us. Finally, after all these years, we could truly grow up. Consider it a remarkable stroke of luck. Okay. You know, I usually do the previous week overview, but I'm going to actually save that because we're in this beautiful space from our observing of breath meditation, and I want to go right into this embodied living, embodied dying teaching because it sort of builds on that. And the first thing we're actually going to do, because of our technical glitches, I didn't tell you this, Anna, but you can set the breakout rooms up for 2 people each. And I'll give you the amount of minutes in a minute.
Right.
So the teaching, the transmission, the feeling into about embodied dying is really at the core is, what if we could trust ourselves? What if we knew how to die? And there's just so much that spins and spirals out of those questions. And it's really sort of based in some ways on this universal truth or principle, Rumi, which is the what's in the way is the way. What's in the way is the way. Or as Rumi says, the cure for the pain is in the pain. Cure for the pain is in the pain. And so, we're working our way towards this very radical concept, which is, can we see death as a lover? It's a very radical concept. And in it, much like this idea of what's in the way is the way, is more immortality is achieved through embracing mortality. It's this paradox, yeah? And this idea of embodied dying, like this is oxymoronic. How could this possibly be? We're leaving the body, you want us to be in the body? What is this? What is the meaning of this? And like any good paradox, the contemplation of it sort of in a way births a third. So that's what we're touching on today. That's what we're sort of sidling up against and next to. And I want to do that through an embodiment practice, which we're going to do in breakout rooms. And I'm going to give it some good time, so you'll have some time. And so you're each of you, and we don't know who you'll get because it's random, but one of you, you're going to take turns. So each of you are going to have an opportunity to play a divine deity, and each of you are going to have an opportunity to play a mortal. You know that one well. So I'm going to give you your jobs, and you might want to write it down, make some notes, because the divine deity has a job and the mortal has a job. And I'm gonna practice it with Damon, Sean, and I are going to practice it so you can see it happening, but I'll explain it first. So when you're playing the role of the divine deity, your job is very specific. You get to love the other person. You get to love the mortal in front of you. And there's only 2 things you get to say. And the first thing you get to say is a question. What is the biggest obstacle to trusting your body? What is the biggest obstacle to trusting your body? What is the biggest obstacle to trusting your body? And then the mortal is going to have a process around that and work with that and be with that. And the other thing you get to say to every response is, I love that part of you. I love that part of you. I love that part of you. So it's really important when you play the divine deity that there's no advice giving, no discussion, no relating, no helping them, fixing them, none of that. Let them work it through. Let them be immortal. Let them be a mortal, a human. Okay. And then you're going to get to play the mortal, right? And your job as the mortal is that you get to explore this question. What is the biggest obstacle to trusting my body? And you're going to be pretty self-directed because the deity's just there loving you, just loving you. And you're going to have to really sort of go in and there, that deity is holding some space for you, but you have an opportunity to connect with maybe some scary place, maybe some place you haven't been able to explore or put words to. Okay. Damon, Sean, are you ready to play the example with me?
Sure, I was a little distracted because Fathom wasn't working and I was getting another Otter note taker configured and just finally got it logged in. So can you get a quick overview again so everyone knows?
Yeah,
Thanks.
sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a technologically challenging morning. Here we are, us and technology, married to each other. Okay, so you're going to play the divine deity, Damon Sean, and your job is very specific. You're going to get to love me as the mortal. I'm going to play the mortal. And the only two things that you get to say to me, there's two things. And your first thing you'll say to me is, what is the biggest obstacle to trusting your body? And you can say that over and over if it feels like I need that prompting. And
Yes.
then when I have, when I'm struggling with that or feeling into that or having some emotion, then your other job is to say to me, I love that part of you.
Mhm.
And it's
Great.
important to not give advice and not discuss and not relate, not make it about you, just really be present.
Great.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah, I'll just move my Zoom to the screen so you can see me better. Eyes.
Right.
Yes. So belovedly, what's the biggest obstacle to trusting your body?
Mm. Oh, thank you for asking, divine deity. Just gonna settle in here. My hands immediately go to my belly and oh yeah, I just have a sense that I've never been taught and I'm scared there and I don't know how. And what if there's things I can't handle in there? And oh my God, my body's gonna die someday.
Yeah, I'm loving those parts that are scared and don't know how, and feeling like they might get overwhelmed and that you might
Yeah,
die
let's just,
someday.
yeah, I want to just encourage you to keep it super, super simple and just say, I love that part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those parts of you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and the one that feels sort of the most alive for me is like some grief really coming up of like I was never taught like how do I even trust my body? Like how do I even be inside here? Like especially in my belly where there's scary places and shame. So that's really feeling heavy for me. Like, oh, I wish I knew the way.
Yeah, and I'm loving that part of you too.
Thank you. Thank you. So, if Damon and Sean and I were going to go in a breakout room, and we might do this also just at home, I'm going to have like 8 full minutes to explore that. 8 full minutes as the mortal to explore that, to be like, oh, what is my biggest obstacle to trusting my body? So, what that means, Anna, is probably we're going to set the breakout rooms for 20 minutes with a 1 minute callback. And so you'll have to keep time for yourselves. And Anna, if you can make sure to broadcast a message to the group halfway through and say, hey, it's 10 minutes. So this gives you a little bit of time to warm up, say hi to each other, transition in between, and then you'll switch. Is this feeling clear, this exercise? Person A is the divine deity, person B is the mortal, and then you switch. You've got your tasks. James and Hannah are going to be in a breakout room together. That makes the most sense because they're probably together in the flesh, in the mortality. Any questions? Looks like I have a question. Second. I need to get Zoom for Italians because like every time I talk with my hands, it like to put a hand up. Any questions? Any Anything. Okay. Great. You ready, Anna?
Yep, got it here.
Okay, you can send folks away when you're ready. Great. Got a little extra minute there because Damon Sean started the timer late. Ah. How was that for folks? That's my question as folks come back. How was that exercise for you? Thanks, Sam and Sean. Anyone want to share?
I'll share. I left my mind out off screen and didn't try to plan what I would say. It just looked inside and was very surprised and pleased with what came from a deeper place. I think that's enough to say. Thank you. It was a good exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, some of it, I just have to laugh at the synchronicity or something because I was so freaked out about the internet this morning that I didn't actually wasn't able to put my sort of notes in a coherent order. So I just get to wing it. Which, like, I don't know. This is just probably perfect. um, but that exercise, is very tantric, and there's 1,000 different definitions of tantra. But I want to come at it from this idea of the paradox of embodied dying. Um, because, we know from whatever studies of DNA we've done and the spiritual side of knowing our ancestry and where we've emerged from is that we've spent eons in matter, that we've been rocks and we've been elements. We've been this sort of all of the platonic solids. Like, we know this in our system. We have it coded in us. And there's these sort of long epochs of time. Some traditions call them the yugas or the eras or the epochs, and we've spent so many of those epochs exploring matter. And we're obsessed with evolution in our culture. We love the concept of evolution. What is it to become a more refined version of something, a bird, a frog, ourselves? We're always evolving. But because our culture is so focused on matter, and in religion and in these kind of spiritual traditions, we've had such a deep split between spirit and matter. We don't know how to marry these things. It's either one or the other. It's black or it's white. And if the quantum physicists are right, and we've had, there is no linear time, it's all sort of aligned and it's all happening at the same time. We've also had plenty of probably experiences just in spirit, where we're spirit alone and not matter. But we're at this incredible emergence right now. This is sort of the turning of the ages. This is the time that has been prophesied in every possible tradition, this great change, this great turning that we're in. And we have the audacious task to explore the marriage of spirit and matter. And this is unheard of before our time. This was heresy. This idea that I am God, that God is in me, that I am divine, that I can look within and find capital T truth. And not only me, but every single one of us. That the divine is everywhere, everything, all the time. This idea is so emergent. And maybe we've heard it so much, or it's in the New Age, or we don't really know what it means. But the involution, which is sort of the counterpart to the evolution, which is spirit wants into matter. We may be seeking spirit, we may be seeking unity, we may be seeking God, but God is also seeking us, right? Another beautiful Rumi quote, which is, whatever you are seeking is also seeking you. Whatever you are seeking is also seeking you. And as humans at this time, at this emergence, we get to play. Really, we have this incredible opportunity to play within this vehicle. What does it mean to live in a marriage of spirit and matter? To reunite those things. That is epic. That is an epic moment that we're in. And I want to venture to say that it actually happens in a specific place in our bodies. It happens in the belly, in the solar plexus energy center. This is the radiating of the self, the little self and the big self. And for many of us, this is one of the hardest places to actually inhabit in our beings, right? And so to get to be, to have the great privilege of sorting through the layers of discomfort that maybe exist in that part of us to get to the deeper treasure that's there. And why this idea of embodied dying is so exciting for me, is because we can take anything we love and play with the marriage of spirit and matter. We can take anything we love: tennis, chess, reading, parenting, making love, anything we love, and we can play with the marriage of spirit and matter. Absolutely. But there's nothing quite like the inevitability of our own deaths to bring us deeply in touch with some of the scariest places in our being. And then it becomes a doorway. And it's sort of a shortcut. We want a spiritual shortcut. The spiritual shortcut is death. Because as we befriend death and we work through our fears and we work through our discomforts, and we realize that what life offers us is an ever unfolding opportunity to deal with stuff that's hard. It's sort of, the low points, like Pema Chodron was saying in that quote this morning. It's a great boon. These low moments are a great boon to practice. This is love too. This is God too, right? So when we start to ride the wave of life, which never stops, right? There's high points and low points and high points and low points. So instead of it becoming a polarity, we start to see it as a wave. And how do we surf that wave with as much open-heartedness and as much yesness to the top of the wave as to the bottom of the wave? And this is what death contemplation and death practice helps us do. And this is the tantric path. This is the path of, how do I stay in ecstasy, love, openness, saying yes to life at every point on that wave? And what I learned to see is the wave instead of the ups and the downs. So the exercise that you did with your divine deity and your mortal is that it's the beginning of that dialogue. What's in the way is the way. What's in the way is the way. What's in the way is the way. Thoughts, reflections, questions on all of this? I'll say a little bit more. Embryology, is such a new idea that we could understand how the fetus is formed, what forms it, what's breathing us, right? Who's breathing us. There's immense wisdom that starts to form around the midline, and those cells get to distinguish themselves into a liver cell or a toenail or a brain cell. And like we've talked about with the fascia being sort of modeled on the matrix of the universe, and these gifts, this vehicle is such a gift. And what makes us, I mean, can we dream into the possibility that the body has that much wisdom around death, has that much understanding about how to decline and how to die, or how to die in a moment? Can we hold that as our aspirational truth, that we have a blueprint, and it's a specific blueprint to us for our own death? And there's a narrative beyond, for us, beyond this life. I do have some notes here. So my experience in doing sort of deep trauma work and somatic work over a long period of time is that the more my body trusts me, the more my body trusts me to stop controlling it and forcing it and scolding it and labeling it and blaming it, the more it allows my spirit to inhabit and descend. The more I listen deeply, more I get out of the way. My sensuality is fuller. My playfulness returns. I believe the sort of DNA can calibrate to a higher octave, and that intuition becomes more finely tuned. Because there is that interplay, that involution that happens, that the part of me, that essence part of me, feels like it can show up more. So I venture to imagine that the more related we are to our bodies at the moment of death, the more we have access to these superpowers. And it's really vulnerable. It's really vulnerable to be in these forms. You know, Brene Brown, we can turn to Brene Brown and just thanks to her for all her work on vulnerability. You know, because being here in this form, knowing this form will end, is one of the bravest and riskiest things we'll ever do. But I think that part of the trust here is knowing, you know, at least having a glimpse that the sacred marriage of spirit and matter has something for us that the two separately could never have. And that when they do marry and when they do cooperate, that death, we have everything we need to navigate the stuff that's hard, including death. What's alive for you when you hear this? What emerges for you hearing some of these pieces?
I
My
can say something.
body, oh,
Go ahead.
Carl, go ahead. You go first.
Uh, well, I'm just really excited to hear this whole thing, Lee. It's just like you're saying really a lot of in-depth stuff, and I really like the idea of the wave, and not looking at the highs and lows, but surfing the wave, and and how to tie that into my dying and trusting my body. That was one thing in the process. It was like Dara and I both came up that my mind is my biggest obstacle to trusting my body.
That came up for us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Lee.
Who else wanted to speak that unmuted? And
I just wanted to say that I could feel my body taking a deep breath and all of the essence of that.
yeah. Yeah. What if death is our ultimate lover? That's a very tantric concept. What if death is our lover ultimately? You know, in much of the religious iconography, you'll see religious figures with a hand up, 2 fingers, 3 fingers, or a hand. And, you know, you often see it in Christianity. Jesus is pointing to the heart with a hand up, and you see it in Hindu iconography. And what the hand often represents is there's no fear, there's nothing to fear. And yet, that's again the paradox, is to face the fear of death is such an incredible gift. And this is where, you know, to move through the fear of death and to use death as a lover, the idea of death as a lover, as a beloved. It, in some ways, it makes us immortal, right? Because immortality is about exquisite aliveness right in this moment, this immortal moment. And the more we face our fear of death, the more exquisitely we are alive in every moment. So it gives us the very thing. When we face our fears about it, it gives us the very thing that we surrender around, like most of these paradoxes. Mary Marty, I saw your hand.
When you said the body has a role to play for the spirit, I just had this remembrance that spirit needs bodies to make things what come about on earth.
Yeah. The spirit is delighted to have a vehicle. Doesn't matter how much that vehicle struggles with this, that, or the other thing. It's delighted. Like, this is the playground of all playgrounds. We get to play with this. And now at this time, we get to be conscious about playing with it.
Wow. Thank you.
Lee, it's Satya. Can I say something?
Please.
There was this piece that you just said somewhere along the way about actually, or at least this is how I received it, about the body trusting us, right? That was a big turnaround for me. I was like, oh, right. So without shaming it, without, beating it up, in whatever ways that we do that. And that's definitely up for me. And what came up for me was like this obstacle of a belief or a feeling or both that my body's betraying me. Not just in death, but I wasn't even looking at it as death. I was taking it as in this moment right now, with the pain that I feel, or, the, beauty leaving me and continuing to leave me in the way that it was before. And it's like, oh, but what if I'm really in contemplation about that right now. What if I'm a place that's soft enough for my body to trust me, to love it no matter what? And then my spirit and source itself can inhabit more of me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can speak for myself. My body has a lot of reasons not to trust me.
Yo, me too. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So good. Thank you. I mean, the amount of sophisticated biological systems that are running in us right now without us even thinking about it. And we have this story that it doesn't know how to die. I mean, it knows how to live. Like, that's the bigger miracle way. It knows how to run this thing in a fairly sophisticated way. I'm pretty sure it knows how to die. And I think that emergent work here, and the importance, I think, for all of us, it is certainly, death literacy and death awareness and death positivity and getting these physical systems up to snuff and making sure, we can get our needs met and making plans that take care of our physical body. But for me, the exciting part is, can we trust ourselves? We trust ourselves enough to maybe even be learning, enjoying, and present through the process. What would that look like? Starting now. Starting now. So I have another exercise, and Anna, you can set up the breakout rooms for 2, and this is the other half of the last one, and we're going to do a divine deity and immortal again, but it's going to be a little bit different. So as the mortal, you're going to hone in on a quality, a characteristic, or a superpower that you need in order to be able to be more fully in your belly, specifically, but in your body. Something that will aid you on your journey towards the inner marriage, that will allow matter and spirit to dance in you. And when you get into the breakout room, you will be with a divine deity, but I want you to really sink into, like, what is the thing, what is, if I could name one thing or one or two things, what would really help me get in here? What is the superpower that I need? And Sean, you and I can practice this again. It will not, no, it won't be the same pair as earlier. It will be mixed up. And the role of the deities are all going to be the same deity. And I hope you love this. All the deities are going to be Glenda the Good Witch. Do you all know who Glenda the Good Witch is? From Wizard of Oz? You know, that like classic fairy godmother who's all in pink, and yeah, she's great. And she cocks her head and she smiles sweetly, and she's going to say, So when the mortal says, "Oh, I really need superpower, or the characteristic or the quality that I need is," I'm just gonna say one, permission. I need permission. Then the deity is gonna cock her head and smile sweetly and say, "You've had the power all along, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself." So write that down, because you're gonna play the deity. You've had the power all along, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. But the deity is going to let the mortal sort of work it out. So we're going to have less time here. Let's do 10 minutes total, Anna. So Dave and Sean, are you ready to practice? Will you be Glenda the Good Witch?
Sure, although I prefer being the wizard, but yes, I can be the good witch.
Yeah, be Glenda the Good Witch, because she specifically says that in the Wizard of Oz. And I like picturing you with pink and floaty things, floaty wings. So my job as the mortal is to hone in on the quality, characteristic, or superpower that I need in order to be able to more fully inhabit my belly. Something that's going to aid me in my journey towards the inner marriage, towards matter and spirit, towards being able to be in my body. And I'm just going to really sit with that. Yeah, the quality that's sort of coming up for me is reassurance, like support or reassurance or reflection. Those are what's feeling really, really like, oh, I could really use some of that. Yeah, so I'm just gonna settle on this quality, this characteristic of reassurance. That I want to feel that in my belly in order to really feel more fully in myself. That's what I'm gonna choose.
Had that power all along, my dear. You just had to learn that lesson yourself.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, and maybe 10 minutes is a little bit long. What do y'all think? Because I also want to make sure you have another break. Would you say that 8 minutes would feel like enough to do that? Okay. Anna, if you'd change that to 8 minutes, and then obviously you all can talk about it. But really give the mortal a chance um to really feel what it is they want to call in to help them be in the body. And then Anna, if you could send a broadcast a message out halfway through that their 4 minutes is up. We'll see you on the other side. Whenever you're ready, Anna. Okay, welcome back. How are you all feeling about the idea that you have everything you need to die? How's that? How's that living in you? Or how was your Glenda experience? What are some of your characteristics that you need to be more fully embodied? Sorry to the people who are watching this recording. We did a lot of breakout rooms today and it's going to be short. But, if you want to practice these exercises again with your buddy, I would encourage it because you can try again, go at it from a different angle. Becky H.
From the first exercise, my main fear or my main obstacle was fear of loss of control. And the main superpower I need is accepting not knowing. And
Love it.
I'm sorry?
Love it.
If I can accept not knowing, then I can overcome my fear of loss of control because you don't have control of what you don't know.
So your practice is one of uncertainty. How do you get, more and more capacity to deal with uncertainty, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Good. Yeah, you know what? The thing about life is that there is a lot of opportunity to practice that.
Every day.
What, you could become an athlete at that. Yeah. Darlene.
Oh, hello.
Hey.
Hey, thinking about how just participating and I think that is a holdup for me sometimes. And I did my one-on-one solo because I feel I'm a spiritual and emotional person, but I think I haven't explored that fully enough. And shared that. Sorry, so this is really great.
Yeah.
And so I think the participation part of it. And I was thinking about all that was said and what everyone shares. And that when it's not about us, but it's more, it transcends, and there's a lot of safety I feel in that. And that feels very soul filling. So I don't feel like maybe it's the discomfort comes from somewhere else, because I feel when we sit with that, yeah, like we have what we need, and it's fine. It's a beautiful thing. So, I don't know if that made sense, but I felt like
Well, I mean, I'm just hearing the tenderness of your share and the vulnerability of A, you're sharing, B, that you're exploring something new in your own body, and it's exquisite. So yes, it makes complete sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to you and everyone.
Mhm. Group vulnerability, one person getting vulnerable in the group in our ideal world will point us all towards each of our vulnerability, right? That level of vulnerability is such a gift because it allows us to drop our own masks and drop into our own vulnerability and be in the places where we're right at that edge. And that's the beauty of the death contemplation is if we could love this, we can love anything. Who else? How was it playing Glenda? Was that fun? You've had the power all along, my dear. Haven't you always wanted to say that? Anybody else want to share? Carla.
Okay. There's a train going by like half a block from my mom's apartment, so I apologize if it's disruptive. I picked lightness of being because I'm a very intense person, both intuitively and also somatically and mentally. And I remember making a little chalkboard magnet for my refrigerator like 35 years ago, and it said lighten up. And so what I was sharing with my partner is that like I have lots of health issues that are just related to aging and the breakdown, but I don't have to like make the perfect decision for every single health issue. I can make a decision that is good enough for now and will keep me mobile. The only frustration I'm having with that though is that the American medical community where I live in Arizona, they don't really want to deal with people that are not at a crisis level. So I get put at the end of the line behind people that are, on the verge of dying. And what they don't realize is that if they would treat me now, I would never have to be on that end of, the crisis. Now we have to resuscitate her or, give her back surgery or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but the lighten up is, that's what I chose because that's my native personality too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a couple of things come to rise up for me is maybe sometimes I think the medical institutions actually like it when when there's crisis, like that's the model, so that's one piece. But I really love what comes to me is like, could you make your medical decisions with this question of which decision feels lighter? Since lightness is your North Star, which decision feels lighter? I love that. I found it interesting when I sort of asked did the superpower question, and like the word that came up for me was permission. It's like, wow, that's really interesting that I felt that I needed the quality of permission to be in my body, and it's in harmony, keeping with some of my my history and trauma and other things, but what an interesting word. What were some other people's words? What were some of others of your superpowers? What did you choose? Surrender. Nice. Sarah. Yeah. A lot of opportunities in life to learn that one. I always identified with the Wicked Witch more than Glenda. That's awesome. Release, Carl. That's great. Wisdom. Nice. Good, y'all. Equanimity. Good one.
How about
I don't know.
compassion?
Compassion. Yeah. Patience. Oof. So many opportunities in life to play with patience. Oh my goodness. Can't even imagine. Completion. Presence to accept there is no completion. Love that. Love that. Love that. Excellent courage. Equanimity is an important word for me, Maria. It's an Enneagram word. I don't know if any of you are Enneagram geeks, but it is the vital place for me where I sit on the Enneagram. Equanimity. It's like impossible for me to find. Curiosity. Excellent, Lise. And Lise, you had said something up here, which was we just need to keep, I realized that we have the answer. We just need to keep asking the question. Exactly. Because once we think we have the answer, we're sunk, right? I mean, the aliveness is always in the question. Yeah, good. Feel into where to go next. If anybody else wants to speak, feel free, but I will regroup myself here. I'm gonna share this quote next as we transition. This is Marcus Aurelius. A great quote in keeping with what we're doing. Even if you're going to live 3,000 more years or 10 times that, remember, you cannot lose another life than the one you're living now, or live another one than the one you're losing. The longest amounts to the same as the shortest. The present is the same for everyone. Its loss is the same for everyone. And it should be clear that a brief instant is all that is lost. For you can't lose either the past or the future. How could you lose what you don't have? How could you lose what you don't have? This was the other quote that I brought today. What you seek is seeking you. And then also the cure for the pain is in the pain. Or what's in the way is the way. I wanted to touch on also the physical aspects of dying because nobody ever talks about this and we don't learn about this. And since we're talking about embodied dying, let's do a little bit of physical aspects of dying. There's lots of information out there. You could just sort of Google, like the stages before death. And it's really helpful. Sometimes people in hospice don't even understand this or their families don't understand this, and there's not really readily information. So you can look online. It's really easy. And some of these are going to be super intuitive to most of you. Sort of the, month to 3 months before death. And again, we're talking about, bedridden death or death that's part of a decline and not sort of an acute illness or an accident or some other thing. So just always keeping that in mind. We may not go in this way. But, if we do, because this is the easiest thing to sort of wrap wrap our minds around. There's physical changes, right? We slow down, our appetite reduces, we need to sleep a lot more. There's often weight loss. Our energy decreases, we start to turn inward. There's changes in the body chemistry, and if we can encourage ease and restfulness at that time, there might actually be some mild euphoria that happens. There also might be some agitation and anxiety, working stuff out, body's uncomfortable. Sort of, it can be either end. Sometimes people want to talk about death. Some people want hard facts, other people want soft facts. Sometimes people want to share regrets or reflections. It might be harder to interact with visitors, or there might be a desperate need to see someone. About 1 to 2 weeks before death, disorientation can come in, some jumbled thoughts, hallucinations, maybe some spiritual experiences, confusion, uncertainty. I think of this as sort of going between the worlds. You have one foot in either world. Less talking, more sleeping. There can be restlessness, agitation. Everything starts to become harder. The swallowing, the breathing, the eliminating. It's just, the body is getting ready to do something different. The temperature is lower, the extremities get less circulation. So, how I imagine it is we're pulling all of our energy back into the midline, back into the center. Blood pressure gets lower, regular pulse, the skin changes. I sort of see it as sort of like practicing, sort of like contractions when we're looking at birth. I sort of see it as like, okay, we step out, we step in, we step out, we step in, right? Sudden arm and leg movements can happen because there's less going on in those places. You've heard of the rattling in the lungs that can happen. And then when we're looking at hours before death, sometimes days or hours, there can be a surge of energy. It's pretty common. People want to get up and out of bed and they have something to do, and oh my goodness. And you're like, wait, I thought you were dying. What happened? And this is just often a surge. It allows for any final big act to happen before moving on. But then the person, generally speaking, will return to either where they were before or take even a bigger decline. And the breathing becomes slower, less regular, rapid breaths followed by periods of no breathing at all may occur. And then, how we surf pain through all of this is a different question and complex question. There might be sort of blotchy or purplish skin happening or mottled, changes in appearance. Even the lips or the nails might start to turn blue, purple. There's just less oxygen getting to the extremities. The mouth may start to droop open. Folks may have their eyes open, but not really be seeing. It is said that hearing is the last to go. And even, for some people that believe that the spirit stays with the body, that the folks can still hear. And then, when breathing and heart stops is sort of when death has occurred in our culture. Fixed eye gaze, the bowel or the bladder may release. There's no muscle tension. And then, it takes a while for the body to get stiff, but that happens as well. And, what is the component of like where our consciousness is going at those times, again, going inward. There's a great Alex Gray image. I don't know if you all have seen this. You can look it up online. Just search for Alex Gray, artist, and his fabulous image of the spirit rising out through the crown chakra at death and the sort of eyes of Sophia all around. He's just such a great artist for depicting these pieces, and it's such a beautiful piece. I sort of wonder if the spirit doesn't go out through the navel. Like, we don't know, right? What are different traditions say, In Chinese medicine, it is believed that the soul resides in the liver. That the liver is where it houses that sort of bigger visionary part of us. And I would say the midline is another place people really believe is that blueprint of us, that deep, untouchable place in us. So that's a contemplation for you. Any questions about any of that? Okay. I'm circling back, like I said I would, to last week. Oh, I didn't get to prepare my slides. Give me a second. So last week we did a lot. We looked at Wish 2 and the life prolonging measures. We looked at second, let me find. Okay. What's that? Sorry, I have some notes. Here we go. Last week was honoring the container with your values. We talked about Wish 2, the kind of medical interventions you want and don't want, life prolonging measures. We looked at my addendum, how to add to Wish 1 and Wish 2. We talked about pain and the spectrum of perspectives on pain. We talked about alternative endings, like V said, which is voluntary stopping of eating and drinking, and MAID, which is medical assistance in dying. We talked about being at choice. We gave a lot of resources. And we had this whole list of potential homework, which is this how I want to die video from that doctor who was like, you don't want to choose all this. We had the Bitter End podcast to talk to your buddy, maybe have conversations with your healthcare agent, check out the addendum. So I'm going to stop sharing here so we can see each other and who wants to share on any and all of that, either what we did today or the homework, and specifically, like, how's it going with the buddies? Dale, is Dale here? Dale needed a
Yeah,
buddy.
I'm here. I still don't have a buddy.
Oh, goodness. Dale, our beloved Dale, does not have a buddy. And Damon Sean says that he's up for buddying with you for sure. And it was also a question of, did other folks want to add a third, or did anyone else feel like they needed to change buddies? So why don't you and Damon Sean connect? Oh, Satya, you need a buddy? Wonderful. Dale and Satya, why don't you be buddies?
Sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah, exchange contact information in the chat. Great. Does anybody else need a buddy shift or change or upgrade or a tune up or anything? You're all good? Okay. All right. So let me ask a specific question. How did it go last week integrating all that we did? How is it living in you around interventions and alternative endings and yeah, Wish 2? Anybody want to share?
Well, this is Dara.
Hi, Dara.
Yeah, hi. So I'm like close by to my mom and dad. Dad's 93 and mom's 87, and I live like 4 blocks away. So I'm with there a lot. And I lived with them since 2019 up until last year. So a very intimate relationship with my parents. Never talk about death. Dad spends his days on the computer buying stuff on Amazon. Mom spends her days reading the New York Times. They're very much not spiritually inclined, not interested. And my mom will drop hints about, well, we've gotten everything taken care of. It's all wrapped up. And And so this week, because of your class, I was inspired enough to say to my mom, can you please train me? Like, if I was actually to have to take responsibility, I would never know where to look, what to do. Like, where is all your stuff? Like, do you want to talk about this? And we had an opportunity because I had a medical emergency and had to go to urgent care, and my mom went with me. And so we were in the waiting room at urgent care for like an hour waiting. And so I brought it up, and it was really good conversation. But I could sense my opinions and attitudes coming out towards her, and I had to really like give her space, like really pull that back in, like, because I reminded her, look, I'm taking this class. I'm really smart around this stuff. Why don't you tell me where your things are? But when I heard that coming out of my mouth, I was like, okay, be more respectful, just humble. And so we had a good conversation. I wouldn't say that I would actually got the answers I was looking for. But it has helped me have those conversations with my mom and dad.
I'm so proud of you. Oh
Thank
my
you. It was
God, I'm so
scary.
proud of
It was
you.
scary because, I'm a misbehaving 16-year-old in my mom's eyes forever. Like, I'm not a responsible adult. So it was a little scary.
Oh my God, I don't know. I can imagine myself being like, and then you have to, and this isn't
Yeah.
good enough, and totally. And I think, just as a neutral observer outsider, like if you could conquer, if you could reel your energy back in and let her have whatever kind of
Yeah.
death she wants to have, even if you're cringing the entire time about how it could be different, like
Yeah.
you get 10 gold stars.
Well, it is about, as Sarah Davis said, it is about surrendering. So there is my positionalities around this. I'm surrendering constantly to divine spirit. Like, I don't know anything. I just want to be at service to the what is.
And
And
her soul
yeah,
has her own blueprint to her own
yeah,
process.
totally.
Right.
Totally.
Thank you. And
So
it's just
thank
that,
you.
every time we think we want to interfere into somebody else's process in life and in death, it's time for us to be like, oh, okay, what's going on here? What's happening here? So good. Thank you, Dara. Anyone else? Wish to interventions, pain, alternative endings, made, V said. It was a lot we did last week. It was a lot of stuff. Still integrating.
I paid
You-
close, I paid close attention, Alan, to the interventions videos. Got a clear sense that that was important information, and that changes my perspective that I really hadn't crafted previously. One of my kids is about to finish medical school and wants to do emergency medicine. And so I sent that to him asking for his review. I have not received a response yet, but I took an action step as a result of seeing that. He has my healthcare power of attorney.
Yeah, so since he has your healthcare power of attorney and he's into emergency medicine and you're having some light bulbs go off about what this is actually meaning, it sounds like those are some conversations you all need to have. Is that
Very
right?
much, very
Yeah.
much. And I asked that question that Z-Dog talked about. Can he set aside his emotions to be able to make those decisions? My sense is he can, because he's seen enough at this point and is very independent, self-motivated. But I asked that question of
Yeah.
him. I want to have
Really good question. And it's almost like in a situation that Dar is in, which is like, he knows how to save you, he'll know how to do it. And yet how can he be a son in those situations instead of a doctor? Beautiful, really beautiful, complex, multi-layered. Thank you, Alan. Who
Thank you.
else watched the video of This Is How You Want to Die? Dave, you watched it. Becky, Madison, Linda, great. And Brenda sent it to us. Yeah, it's really intense, isn't it? Yeah. Are you glad you watched it? Better have it be intense now than then. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I really appreciated in the podcast the naming of the bridge question, which is like, what would you do if it was your family member? That was super, like, I think that that's something that I'm going to use just like in regular medical care also when I'm feeling that I don't know how to make a decision. Because the naming of that as a bridge to like humanize the doctors, because it seems very clear the doctors are pretty clear that they don't want that stuff. And having that be a bridge that you can use to ask
Yeah.
was really powerful and
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. It's been years since I've listened to that podcast, but I remember how good it was. Yeah. Yeah. Brenda.
So I just want to, regarding, I listened to the recording from last week, and I really like the emphasis on redundancy of like the advanced directives paperwork. And there were some questions about, well, if you go, you're at the hospital and nobody knows your wishes and things like that. So
Yeah.
things just to like, just kind of to share that most hospitals have that paperwork. So if you don't have your paperwork with you, you can actually ask to complete an advance directive at the time that you're admitted. And the other thing that I kind of got out of the recording was some questions about, well, how much detail does the hospital and the doctors really want to know? They really want just the basics. So I went and I found, we have two health systems here in Pittsburgh, UPMC and Allegheny Health Network. So I grabbed off the internet, the UPMC hospital paperwork, and this is a Pennsylvania Advanced Healthcare Directive. So let's say you don't have it with you in your purse, and your person that's if you were to need a decision maker, they're not there with you and you're in the hospital. And this actually happened to me when I had an emergency appendectomy in the middle of the night during COVID in 2021. And I didn't have any of my paperwork with me. So you can actually fill out the hospital's paperwork, and it's just the basics. It lists who is your decision maker, and it lists, the question is, can the person make decisions or help me make decisions right after I sign this form, or only when I can't make decisions for myself? That's a box. And then there's a box regarding flexibility and how much information can be changed based on the doctor's opinion. So that's the first page of this. And then you go right into, here's your checklist. I want this or don't want this. So this is without and I love the 5 wishes and all the addendums and everything. This is really what the doctors want. Do you want a feeding tube or not? If you can't, that kind of thing. And then this is the next page of the big things that you do or don't want. You can actually fill this out. It's only 4 pages. You sign the form with 2 people witnessing it in the emergency room or at your hospital bed. And then your friend comes, and then this goes in your paper chart in the hospital. Then your friends comes in with your real, your big, long, the paperwork that you have in your freezer or whatever. But this can serve as a kind of a bridge. And most hospitals do have this. Most PCPs have this, that you can, because and you can't keep it on file with medical records because of HIPAA. You can't, in order for my advocate to get information through my medical records, if I can't make decisions, I would have to sign the release. So this really has to be kept in your purse or with your person, or filled out if you can when you get to the hospital. And it can just stay in your paper chart, doesn't get used, and then it gets destroyed at the end of your visit.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much. And the post and the most document, which we're going to do next week, is similar to what Brenda is saying, and it is usually by state, and it's usually bright neon colored paper, and it's very similar. It's like 2 sides, and it's like just the facts, ma'am. Like, what do you want? What do you don't want? And the hospital may want something in addition, and the doctor's office may want something different. But see, now that you're clear, it's super easy to fill out that paperwork. The problem is when they hand that to someone who's never thought about this, the person's like, what does all this mean? Right. But since you all, have done the long form in a way, doing the short form is easy. You're just like, this is clear. This is what I want. This is what I don't want. So awesome. Thank you for spelling that out, Brenda.
One other thing we actually talked about in my buddy group also is about calling 911. And because if someone does call 911 and you're at your end of life, let's say somebody is with you, you're dying, and someone panics, the EMTs, they're not going to stop resuscitating you, because so the idea is that everybody, including your neighbors, let's say your death rattle is so loud, your neighbors are going to call 911. I'm laughing because I'm telling you, my friends, I have several friends who are EMTs. All they're going to do is save your life. They don't care. When you talked about the DNR on the chest, tattooed on the chest, that is absolutely true. That doesn't matter.
That's their job, and that's their, it's more than their job, it's their mandate. That's what they exist for. They exist to go revive people. They're not, there's not a lot of discernment when the ambulance pulls up. For sure. Or the ER, or getting, showing up at the ER. These are the places you're going to have the least amount of discernment.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
One last quick thing about voluntary stopping of eating and drinking. I'm going to
Yes.
put some resources. I'm going to send you some resources to review, Lee, about that. I just had a training in that as part of my my doula training, and it's something to definitely explore, but you need to explore it now, because that's one of those things that you could be deemed because there's a chance that your body is like healthy enough that this is going to really hasten death. You could actually be deemed someone who maybe is not mentally sound to make that decision, unless all along you have said, if my quality of life, is disruptive enough that I cannot like have meaningful relationships or walk or whatever, then there's a chance that you could be forced to continue eating and drinking, because there's a question of whether you have capacity to make that decision. But if your friends and family and everyone know that that's one of your values, is that at some point you may make that decision because quality of life is so,
What did you mean? What did you mean when you said if you're healthy enough to, I think you said if you're healthy enough that you might decline, or somehow,
well, what I'm saying is that if you're not yet hospice. So let's say you're not at that stage of your illness that you're ready for hospice.
Okay, got it.
Right. And then you say, but you're in palliative care. And I love palliative care, because as soon as you have a life-changing illness, you can get palliative care in. Okay. They can go all along, all the way through, and then help make the decision of when to get hospice in, which would be like your last 6 months. So if you're not yet at the point where you qualify for hospice, this is something you could do.
Yeah.
If you have sound mind and you have made this wish known now that this is a possibility.
Gotcha.
Like do intermittent fasting. For me, fasting is not painful. It's, that kind, and people know that, and you put that in your paperwork that this is a potential way that so it's like taking morphine or benzos that may hasten your death because you don't want to be in pain. It's very similar to that.
Okay, I'm going to reflect what I heard. So if you are, if you are feeling like V said, voluntary stopping of eating and drinking is something that you'd want to consider at the end, towards the end of your life, as a means to, an empowered means to end your life, you would want to include that now, and talk about it when you talk to your healthcare agent and family and friends as a potential option, because you want it noted, you want it documented ahead of time that this is something that is a path, spiritual path, emotional path, a path that feels empowering and right for you. Anytime you mention something is spiritual or religious, you can often get a pass through. And something is spiritual or religious to us if it's valuable to us. So you can use that language and, this is a deeply held belief, or this is a spiritual path. Fasting is a spiritual path for me. Um, so thank you, Brenda. And the funny thing is that they have these retreats in Russia and other places where people have terminal illnesses and they basically dry fast, which is no food and water, for weeks and they get better. And so like that's the downside. Like if you think you're going to off yourself with VSED, you may actually get better. And so maybe it's a win-win. I don't know, but that's really helpful. Thank you. Um, and it's no problem to put it in your addendum, because then you can choose it or not choose it, but at least it's there. And I will totally add that to mine as well. Thank you. It's there in case you need it or want it. Is that right? Am I getting it right, Brenda?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. Great. Becky L.
Yeah, I was going to share a couple of experiences of supporting my neighbors in the VSED process. And then I was very surprised you said that somebody got better after not eating or drinking any water for weeks. Because when my father-in-law was transferred into hospice, and after about a week, his brother came and said, "What's going on? Can we reverse this?" And the doctor says, "No, at this point, you can't reverse it because the body can't accept any water at this point. It's not going to reverse that process." But what was I going to share about the neighbors? The first one, who for actually years, as part of his service for his Quaker meeting, told people, "I've got this graph and it shows all the qualities of life that are important to me. And I'm going to show you as they decline in my life over the next few years, dealing with advanced Parkinson's in his 90s. When I get to a certain step, I'm going to stop eating and drinking." And he wanted to have lots of conversations with everyone at the Friends meeting, and it really was very helpful to folks. At the end of the day, when he started, he actually had a big birthday party the day before and had 3 bowls of ice cream before he started, which I think made it extend a little longer. But his 3 sons came, and one of them was like, "This is horrible. Don't do this." And, they never talked again. He left. And then one son lived close by and came every day, and the other son was accepting of the process. But one interesting thing was so again, this friend was a medical doctor, worked in public health, and he, at one point before, can't remember, it was the day before he started or a couple of days into the fast, he called the UNC local hospital and said, "There's going to be a cadaver available for donating to science in about 3 weeks," and made the arrangements for them to come get his body when he died. And when hospice, they asked the home health agency to send people, I guess it was hospice at that point, to support the process. The first person they sent said, "What are you doing? I don't agree with this." And then they just called the agency and they said, "We need someone who supports the process." So they sent a different nurse who supported the process. And it was very helpful to have that support.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's any kind of topic around death is scary for people, and then doing something like this, which is yeah. So education. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I also wanted to mention then, if you do start voluntary stopping of eating and drinking, at a certain point into it, you then qualify for hospice. So you do want to have hospice ready to support the process. So you may not qualify when you start the process, but you can qualify into it. I did check.
What qualifies you?
because you are then in the process, the dying process within 6 months of your death. That becomes so you stopping eating and drinking and your organs and everything shutting down then qualifies you for the hospice services.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, Becky, in terms of the dry fasting, it's a thing. You know, I don't know about how long, but I know that people have gone weeks at least, and they've, you know, it's there's something about how it incinerates toxins in a different way and blah 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 blah. And so I don't know. It's a great question. What else? Where's else anybody stuck on the paperwork or yeah, need any kind of support or of other things to share?
I just want to share another little bit.
Yeah.
When I was with my grandmother when she was dying, there was a huge amount of energy just rushing out of her crown chakra. And I've been looking for that everybody else who died, and it's like, oh, and maybe this person I should have been feeling in the gut or the liver or somewhere else, you know, just because it's a pretty intense and interesting experience. But I was interested that you shared that it could be released other ways, and I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think most traditions show it here. You know, the connection to the upper realms. But yeah, thank you. All right, your homework for this week. Gosh, contemplate all that. It's a lot to contemplate. Death as lover. That contemplation. That was, yeah. So whatever parts of, you know, the embodiment exercises or the marriage of spirit and matter, or, you know, the befriending death or riding the wave, whatever of those pieces sort of landed for you as a seed, I would say water that seed. Bring that to your buddy conversation this week. Try a similar practice. Any last thoughts? All right. I'll hang out here for a while if folks want to talk, but love y'all. See you next week.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much, Lee. It's phenomenal.
Lenny, how are you doing? You said you had spotty internet, but you were able to hang in there today?
Yeah, I just kept flicking my camera off and on. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you in Black Mountain?
No, we're Fairview.
Okay,
Yeah.
Fairview. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad to be back. I have lots to catch up on. I will watch every little minute you sent. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so good to be with you.
Oh gosh, it's just too much. I mean, not too much, just like so much.
Yeah,
I love it all.
Yeah, it's such a gift. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank
Yeah. Dara, I hope you're doing okay. You said you had emergency. Hope things are good with you. It's funny to see you. I see Sarah's mannerisms in you, and you know, I'm so familiar with them in her, and then to sort of see them in you, it's very
Oh, well, thank you for this opportunity. It's great to be with her. So far away, and I'm heading down to Peru in December to be at her wedding. So really looking forward to that.
she's about to go through her own big initiation.
Yep. Yeah. So thank you for this. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Anything else, anyone?
Something I'm trying to figure out articulating. My mother was in this room 4 years ago and dying, and I didn't know when death was coming. I was confused. She was very nauseated for many days, and that intractable nausea led me to, well, it was also during COVID and the hospice nurse wasn't coming. And I finally called and said, I need you to be able to take her and stabilize her, because I thought they were going to stabilize her and then she's going to come back, right? Then she would stop being miserably throwing up all the time, which I think was coming from congestive heart failure.
Oh, baby.
But she was dying of metastasized cancer.
Right.
But
right.
she was dying of heart failure too. But she had, I'm still sorting out the pieces that are her and me. She did not want anyone to toilet her. She was fiercely independent about getting up and getting to the toilet, which is, I don't know, 20 feet from here. And the last few days she would push herself out of bed, and we hadn't gotten a bed rail to make it so she couldn't push herself out of bed. So we would have to pick her off the floor. We weren't right here with her. And I don't know, I guess I'm ending up telling you the little story, but I'm not quite sure the piece here. But
did she end up dying in the hospice or the hospital?
2 hours later.
When they came and got her, she died 2 hours.
Yeah. So she was fully conscious, and she was just going, I finally said, okay, we're going to let you go someplace and hopefully they'll help you stop throwing up. And of course they had me mix up all the anti-nausea medicine and the morphine and all the different things they had in the comfort pack. And she got that. And the nurse, when I got there, said, you probably extended her life a little bit with the morphine because it helped her breathe, because she also had COPD.
Yeah.
But she said, well, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom before they come. So she went to the bathroom, sat down, peed, and I said, oh, your pull-up's a little bit wet. Well, we just put that on. Well, let's just put a clean one on. So put a new clean pull-up on. She let me help her do that. And then the ambulance people came and they took her to the hospice facility not too far from here. And so we drove down and met them there. And the nurse said, well, when she arrived, she had vomited on herself. So they cleaned her up from that. And he said, let's change this pull-up. She said, we just changed that one. And then he said, well, okay, we'll put a clean one on anyway. So they did. And it took about, I don't know, an hour of them talking about, okay, we're not sure how long she can stay here. We don't know much about her, whatever. So they let us go in the room with her. And she died about half an hour later.
What a story.
So up until then, I've been with, I don't know, half a dozen people dying, but it's usually like the last couple of days are pretty quiet. I mean, it might get noisy from death rattles or other things, but not people jumping out of bed and I'm going to make it to the toilet.
Yeah. It's so unique. Yeah, there's a lot I think about there around like what's important to her, what was important to her and empowering to her, so.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But it makes me wonder if I can be more relaxed about that myself. I need to, although I'm working through that whole thing, but to me, it's also important to be able to toilet myself and trying to fit that into the wishes and such. But
my experience is when you walk towards death, when folks walk towards death, and there's a whole spectrum, it's not ever one thing, but my experience is when folks are willing to walk towards death, a decline, it tends to be shorter. Because they're not doing a lot of life prolonging things, and but yeah, it's a great question. And if that's important to you, then how do you ride that particular intention now?
Yeah, wonder what do I need to do to surrender and let other people care for me, and
yeah, exactly.
Lots of great places for exploration.
Yeah. So life is such a training ground for the things we want.
Yeah, embracing death as lover. That sounds pretty great.
Yeah. All right, my dears. Okay, lovely to be with you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Anna.
Okay.